Whether it's fair or not, when you've directed massive hits and cult classics like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Baby Driver, like Edgar Wright has, releasing a new project always comes with the lofty standards of expectation to reach the heights of your previous accolades. So, with that in mind for me and the release of The Running Man being met with heavy criticism, I did want to explore two thoughts here. Did it have its flaws? Yes. Is it still a fun experience worth watching? Yes. Let me elaborate. Starring Glen Powell, and as Edgar describes it himself, a closer adaptation to the source material written by Stephen King, The Running Man is a cat and mouse death game show where contestants are tasked with surviving for 30 days on the run to win life-changing money. And so, just from a complete overview standpoint, when you look at that, it is an entertaining action flick waiting to happen, as we've already explored in the 80s as well. So whilst I really had no issue with the setup or even the initial 1 hour of runtime, what I did feel was that it was going at a real breakneck fast pace, and it left me wanting more of the setup behind Glen's character and his status in life and everything involved in leading him up to the decision to come on to The Running Man. And I say this because from the time we meet Glen's character and learn about his daughter, his wife, their money problems, to the time that he actually finishes his audition process and is on The Running Man, it's really not that long in terms of the movie. And being at a 2 hour runtime, we really did have space to probably explore that further before jumping into the main material. And yeah, I can see how that could potentially be nitpicky. It is my personal preference after all. However, what I will say is once we were actually up and running and in Act 2 of the movie where we see heavy action and majority of the game sequences, this movie's really enjoyable and it was full of really fun moments and really entertaining sequences. And so while Act 1 had minor pacing issues and Act 2 was relatively fine from that sense, majority of my criticism in terms of the structure of this film lies in Act 3. To me, this is where I think that the pacing let itself down. I think that if they landed it differently, this would have appeased a fair bit of the criticism that it received. Personally, I think that a further deep dive into the 30 days and more about the gameplay and Glen's character making it to the end, and less about his idea of big corporate takedown is what I in reality longed for. You know, by week 3 in the movie, I was really excited to see where it was going to go and what would happen next in the pursuit of the ultimate prize. And I truly just couldn't help but be underwhelmed when that's not what we got and how quick the turn happens. Now, I will say this, if the reason it goes that way is because Edgar was just following the source material, as he's mentioned multiple times throughout this campaign, well, then that's where I wish that he actually would have veered in another direction. And I think Edgar's the person to do it. He does have that creativity and flair, and the sort of brain that would actually make this work if instead of following the source material at that point, he was to pivot and go to the end of the 30 days and create a different ending. I, for one, would have been excited for that, and I think many others would too. I mean, it has great visual design, and I think we call it a dystopian world, but it doesn't really feel that dystopian from where we're going. I think the world creation was really strong. It had fun sequences. It was entertaining and truly an enjoyable watch of a movie. I'm glad I got to see it in cinema, and would encourage you to do the same if possible. And whilst it sometimes didn't feel like it had the flair or the warmth of the Cornetto Trilogy, for example, there were still some parts of that laced in this that felt unique to an Edgar Wright film. The one in particular that I think about is the Apostle scenes. I think the way they were edited and cut and the review of the old Running Mans was a really neat touch and something that I think visually was brought to life purely by the brilliance and creativity of Edgar, and so I really welcomed them and I enjoyed seeing those scenes. And on top of that, in general, I really did like all the performances. They were either good or solid. You know, it was also great to see Michael Cera back in a Edgar Wright universe. But I've got one thing to say. Glen, I loved your performance. You're jacked, you're in good shape. Good on you, mate. But please, go take some running classes from your buddy Tom Cruise. Yeah, anyway, enough of that. As you can see on screen now, there are my scores. I'm giving this film a 65 out of 100. Ultimately, I think it's better than people are giving it credit for. You know, the action and the world which it takes place in, they're really well done. It does have its pacing issues, and also, I didn't touch on it too much, but there are some audio mixing things throughout the movie that I don't know if that was just a personal me thing or if that was heard by everyone, but they were there. But anyway, apart from that, I enjoyed it, and ultimately, I still had fun. Go watch it. And until next time, crew, peace.